Kentucky Lake is the largest lake in the state of Kentucky, with over 160,000 acres of water stretching over 184 miles in total. But underneath those peaceful waters lies an underwater secret that was covered up over 80 years ago when the lake was built. Back in the early 1940s, the Tennessee Valley Authority literally flooded this entire area to create the lake, with entire towns, farms, roads, and cemeteries completely wiped off the map in the process, with their footprints buried 40 to 75 feet underneath these freshly laid waters that we now call Kentucky Lake. And the process was massive, with TVA engineers mapping out every structure in the flood zone. Homes were bought out or condemned, buildings were dismantled, thousands of residents relocated to higher grounds. They even identified 126 separate cemeteries that would be submerged underneath the waters from various families and towns throughout that area, and worked to move over 3,000 of those graves to higher ground. But not all of them were moved. Some families couldn't be reached, and others simply chose not to disturb the dead that had been buried there. As a result of that, every year near the center of the lake, when water levels are dropped across the entire lake during the winter, a single gravestone emerges from the watery depths. The only visible grave marker left behind, which belonged to a man named John Y. Whaley, who was buried there back in 1907, 37 years before the lake was built out. And while many headstones were left behind underneath those waters, his headstone stands alone on a raised patch of land that sticks up just above the water, and is all that's left of what was once Newburgh Cemetery, a burial ground used by the residents of a town called Newburgh founded on that land back in the 1850s, which was one of over a dozen small towns that was lost underneath the rising waters of what's now Kentucky Lake. Whether Whaley's body was ever moved still remains a mystery, as most of the other graves in that cemetery were moved. But every winter, that headstone rises from the depths as a quiet reminder that this lake was once someone's land, someone's home, and someone's final resting place.